appreciate your attention to detail. We're going to, what we're going to do tonight, we're going to, of course, to our OCAN, and we're going to have Ken Hansen from Yale band speakers, and then we're going to have, I'm going to talk for 5 minutes or so. As president of the chamber, I don't get paid. And I knew Bud was going to be here tonight, and Dick, so I thought, you know what, this is my opportunity. And then we're going to go to the first speaker, which is Calvin Morrow. You've all seen the news we got. And then, only then, are we going to call on Laurie, to come up and explain the menu and tell you what you're going to do to eat. And we're going to eat, and then we're going to have our keynote speaker. Is that too much knowledge to understand for you, Dick?
Yeah.
I'll keep the feathers and go. I'll pass it on.
You want to repeat it a couple more times?
I will. Hank, where's Hank?
10 minutes.
Hank.
Right there.
Okay, we're going to do OCAN. Can I give you the words, Dick?
This one. Will you all stand, please?
It's going to be on the screen.
And please join me. I have a very weak voice. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons strong men, with glowing hearts we see thee rise the true north strong and free, from far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Please remain standing. I have a sad announcement. In the hometown of Brent, Perryville, Missouri, there was a fatal accident yesterday. I'm asking for 2 minutes silence to grieve with our guest. Paul?
Yes.
You coming up?
I'll just do it from here.
Okay.
Just when I was there for the people that passed away, or the person that passed away in the tornado in Perryville, we just want to bow our heads and just say.
Paul, just hold on. You're going to take the mic because people are going to start throwing dishes at me. They can't hear me. They won't throw them at you, they'll throw them at me.
We want to bow our heads and just have a prayer for the person that passed away in Perryville due to the tornado. We just want to say, Heavenly Father, we ask you to find a way to heal the families and the people that are hurt in Perryville. And we just want to bless everybody in this room and just help Brent get through those difficult times as a community and as a leader in his city hall.
Maybe that gentleman that just spoke there from Missouri, maybe he can lead us in America. God bless America. That gentleman is a terrible singer. The words will be on the screen here. But
Thank you. I can tell you, Dick, that we had some discussion about that because I really like the American one. But I thought the worst thing that can happen is being destroyed. So it would be better not to do it than do it destroyed.
All right, you're leading this guy.
Please sit, yes, please sit. Shut it off. Ain't shut off. Okay. Ken Hansen, we're having the Yale band, and come on up the front here, we can hear you.
Is my work here? Can you hear me okay? Welcome. My name is Ken Hansen. I'm elected Chief, Yale First Nation. Welcome to the guests that traveled from far away. Thankful that everybody made it. And what I wanted to do today is to be a little bit honest with you. It's light, airy, fun, joking around as well too. But part of me, was very reluctant to come, reluctant to open. Part of me feels like it's a more of a window dressing to have a First Nation person come up. And then I went and really looked at it. And I want to use this as an opportunity more than look at it as a negative thing. I just want to light and airy. Who all knows Donald Trump? Hands up. Who knows that Donald Trump's President of the United States of America?
Hillary.
Who knows who the chief of Boston Bar Band is? Who knows who the chief of the Spuzzum Band is? Who knows of the chiefs of Schwahamel, of Gale, of Chwafo, of Seabird? So that's, the theme tonight is growing. How do we grow hope? I think it starts right here. It starts at home. It starts by knowing who's around, who's in your stores, in your businesses, who's contributing to the actual general society in the town of Hope here. So I encourage you and I challenge everybody in this room, go home, get involved, learn who's around, start understanding what First Nations people are and how they contribute to society. Because I guarantee you, I'm coming into this town, and in the next year and a half, you see some very, very big monumental things happening in the town of Hope. I've got plans, I've got things on the go, and I'm going to be looking towards you and everybody in this room for your support, for filling needs. It's a need that has to happen here in this town. There's a need, and it's not being filled. I have the means to fill that need, and I'm going to do it. So that's what I wanted to get through this. I want to use that as an opportunity and a challenge for everybody to get to know who you are, who your neighbors are, how they contribute, so we can start doing business, start growing this community, and move forward. And I think it's a great example. We have guests here from across the sea, and want to do business in this town, in this community. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the keynote speaker. And if there's another young gentleman as well, supposed to be here, and come as well. I'm looking forward to that. I don't see any Chwafo people here. I spoke to Chief Rhoda Peters on the phone before I came. It's my protocol. This is Chwafo land that we're sitting on. This is actually a Chwafo community. The town of Hope is built up. And I always give her permission before I open it, before I say any words, because this is her territory. The Silcoteen decision proves Aboriginals own the land. Canada doesn't own that land, the US doesn't own that land, BC didn't own that land. The natives own that land. So if we want to dig deep, we can start looking at who owns this land that we're sitting on right here today. That's why we all have to grow, work together, and let's move forward. So I thank you again, and I look at it now as an opportunity, as a sign of respect, to be here and invited and share a meal with you all. And I'm hoping that I can get to know you and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, and Paul, and Hank. On behalf of the Chamber, I want thank everybody for coming, because that's the big deal. That we show up, that we're looking at a common purpose, and Ken certainly touched on it as well. But we're going to see how we can put building blocks together for the future. A bit concerned about some of the potential chaos we see in the world, and it's come about, I think, for one particular reason in my mind, probably. But we need to try and stop that. We thank the First Nations because we are sharing space and projects with you as well in many, many areas. And I'd like to make a special mention of Boston Hope Council. And where'd the mayor go? Oh, he's right there, okay. I've never seen the max out before. And Neil Menard, the mayor of Merritt, is here. That's my special request. And there's another new face over here. I think he could be Chuck Strauss-Boy, I'm not sure. I just couldn't let that go, Chuck. You're still going to be shouting you guys a long time. And we had another surprise face here, Harry Lally, an old war horse from the past, like some of the rest of us showed up. So we appreciate that, Harry. And then all the volunteers are put together. I've got to mention the volunteers. But then Dennis showed up with his lovely wife, with some special guests that are from Beijing and a state-owned power company. And they're here actively looking to invest, and they're talking to the regional district about some potential projects from that they'll pull their wallets out for and maybe get off the ground, we're hoping. So we really welcome you tonight from Beijing. I don't know if I mentioned it's alternative power. That's what they're looking at, not the big turbines that spew up the coal and the whatever. It's alternative power, wind power and stuff like that. That's pretty important. Just a couple little things before we move on to the main event, and that is that a couple of housekeeping things I was supposed to mention. One is the Chamber has put in a purchase order for approximately $13,000 worth of outdoor Christmas lights to light up Hope for the Christmas season. And we would really like a broad-based community committee as we move forward with this. This is a pretty significant investment for a self-funding group like the Chamber, but we've had a lot of discussion about it and feel it's really important. Had a lot of discussion in the community about sort of the lack of lights at Christmas, and we think this is a worthwhile project, but we would really respect the request that we get council and to maybe some fabricating companies in town and a bunch of a committee together to get the thing organized, set up, and do the proper job that the community would like. So I'd look to you guys to follow up with, and we'll follow up with, I think, at least one or two fabricated companies who can fabricate some things we can hang the lights on as well, make it attractive.
Yeah.
And then don't forget the salmon barbecue, August 19th. That's become quite a tradition, not a long-standing one, but one that's really gone well and going again this year. And then I just wanted to talk a bit about what the Chamber does. The Chamber is about business, and business makes our world turn. Business about risk and reward assessment, and when you think about it, that's what life is. And as I was thinking about this, I thought that is what life is, because many decades ago, before Dick was born probably, there was a young lady and a young man who had a very serious discussion about marriage and the risk and rewards. And the risk was, what if we get married and what if we divorce, and then there's a messy thing to clean up and the emotional problems. That's a risk. But you know, that young couple decided they would go for the reward. And I'm happy to tell you that the reward was the potential satisfaction of raising successful children with a compatible partner. And I'm happy to say that we took that risk 63 years ago this year, and it's worked out well. So I just have to say after that, she's at least entitled to me to say that, to acknowledge that she is 3/4 of me. It always has been. Like, say, we ran a business, she did the administration, I did the operations. She made sure she never dropped any balls on the floor. And every time I dropped the ball, she caught it before it hit the floor. And I become so spoiled, it's really difficult when I'm working with anybody else that doesn't grab these things I'm dropping before it hit the floor. When a business opportunity arises, the risk and reward is assessed. We get back to the real thing of business. And the decision is made weighing one against the other. The problem is that so many of the parameters that are laid out by people that already have all the reward they're going to get. So in other words, the parameters, the regulations and rules around the business is going to be set up, those rules are made by people that are already into their maximum reward. They're guaranteed a job until they're retired. When they retire, they're guaranteed a pension, everything taken care of. So they're sitting in the spot, and there's nothing wrong with that, except that they've already got it, the only reward they're ever going to get. So when they assess the risk, that's the only thing they assess, because there is no reward. And so many times it's easier to say no, because if anything goes sideways, they're blamed for allowing it to happen. So we lose, I think, opportunity, because the very people that are setting the stage for us to do things don't want to take a gamble when there's nothing in it for them. We need some creative, out-of-the-box thinking that would allow the decision makers to share in the reward. We could turn the entire Fraser Valley into a pristine park, which would give us a mecca that the wealthy people of the world could come and look at and take home wonderful memories. That can be done. But our society is instructed on reasonable paying jobs that allow future generations to flourish in a healthy environment of reasonable housing, etc. That's our role. I believe that's what our society is structured, to try and make sure the future generations coming are going to have a reasonable living and be able to have places to live and look after themselves. We need some brainstorming, I believe, to develop a system where the decision makers can bring a reasonable balance to risk and reward, because they will be a part of the result. Maybe then we can organize some of the potential chaos that is sweeping the world. I'm talking about the fact that people, and I could ask any one of you almost here tonight, and you would wonder how in the wide world did Donald Trump get into office? That would be the big topic. He got into the office because we allowed the bureaucracy to get so bloated and people got so upset, they would look so far as to take, to me, a young egomaniacal child functioning in an adult body to actually become president of the United States. I was so disappointed when they thought he didn't, yesterday I heard him, I'm happy. I mean, I think his business background is something to be admired through this whole process. But you can't be so childless when somebody says you've got a big belly that you start tweeting back and calling my names. Like, that's what the schoolyard kids do. We've got to buy that. So we as a society can take credit for putting him into office because of what we've allowed. The people got so upset with what was going on, they said, even this guy don't want that. So that's when we've got to have some serious discussions where that sort of thing doesn't happen anymore. We get some moderation and things move ahead the way they're supposed to. With that, Larry, where is Larry? Right there, okay.
Thanks, Lloyd. Okay, so I've set the buffet table up so that all the gluten-free is at the front. You'll start with rice, butter chicken, there's some pork, loin, potatoes, veg, and then you've got your vegetarian lasagnas. I'm sorry, the vegetarian lasagnas are not vegan, but they are vegetarian, and then naan bread to follow. All right? Thank you, enjoy.
Okay, just sit tight. Thank you. Just hope you got a good memory, because I dropped the ball. I alluded that earlier, and I dropped the ball, and my wife didn't know that I dropped the ball because she didn't know the protocol. But Steve knew I dropped the ball, and he came rushing up here. We're having Calvin first. I told you that before, but I forgot. Calvin's going to come up and make his presentation, and then we're going to eat before we hear our keynote speaker. Calvin is what you all know. He's a techie, and he started a business in Fraser Valley, and he's going to talk to you about how that all came about.
Let me sort this computer here.
1 minute.
If I know how to use a password, I think we can wrong.
Well, this is going on, I wonder if I can say something. I'm really in favor of the Christmas lights. The residents in Nanaimo, and they just do a wonderful job on the main street of Nanaimo, lights everywhere. I talked to Victor Smith a number of times about putting lights in the trees, and he did some trees, but a lot of trees in there. But I would just like to say on behalf of my wife Barbara, who's not here today, she will donate $500 to the 13,000 that you need. But I hope you tell her, because I'm not going to tell her, you tell her right up to there. But anyway, I would like to just get that across.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming tonight. I'm just going to start off with a little bit of information about me. My name is Calvin Morrow. I'm the owner and creative director of both Greenhouse Games and Flying Squirrel Games. I've been working in the entertainment industry for about 12 years now. You can see a lot of the companies I've worked for. I've worked part of Disney, the Imagineering Group, Hasbro, a lot of other companies you probably haven't heard of. So I'll just move on. So tonight I was asked to come out and speak because I've got a lot of experience hiring, recruiting, building companies in all kinds of different weird communities around the world, from US, Europe, many different communities in Canada. So this is what we're going to be talking about. How do we kickstart job creation, and what is an efficient way of doing so? And these are opinions that I've picked up through working in various communities and various companies. So here we go. So my opinion is that if we can target an industry and a workforce in a way that allows multiple businesses to show up, that's going to open the door for many businesses at the same time. As a business owner who spent the last 2.5 years getting business set up and getting companies and government incentives and working with the government, it's a lot of work. So my idea is that if you can open those same doors for many developers like myself, or even other industries, it doesn't matter technology, you can have a key for modular growth, which solves the biggest problem that I've found is whenever you're going to a new community and hiring, potential employees always ask, okay, cool, I like the company, but are there any other secondary job opportunities I would have if I get laid off, if I don't like the job, or I get fired? If the answer to that is yes, more often than not, I was successful at hiring. So again, in my opinion here, this is what companies are looking for on average. They want government support, they want access to programs, they want access to funding, they want access to benefits for hiring. They need municipal support, whether that's, again, funding or accounting or legal or just a place to set up shop. What I'm specifically going to be looking at today, again, is how to access the relevant workforce that your community is targeting. So in my experience, this is what employees are looking for. They're looking for a desirable location. I think we can all agree that Hope has a desirable location. They're looking to work for a good company with good products. They're looking for support from the company and from the community. But again, getting back to, I believe if you can solve the secondary business opportunity, and if potential employees have secondary options within a 30-minute drive, it'll be much easier to kickstart any industry within any smaller community. So targeting an industry or industries, and what I mean by that is looking at the skills that make up the industry, targeting the overlap of those skills with other very similar industries. So if you start bringing, whether they're programmers or artists or whatever industry jobs that may be, if they can get a job somewhere else, they'll be happy. Again, open as many doors at once as possible. And if you target an industry and then you unlock those incentives working with the government, then they should go across all the companies that you bring. And the other big benefit of targeting industries, if you can attract a large company or grow a large company, then there's a lot of opportunity for spin-offs or secondary companies opening up in the community. So this is an example here, and I'll go through a few more of how the tech industry at least grows. Usually within a company or a community, there's one company. In this case, it's someone who develops websites. The community supports them and brings them the talent they need and helps them grow. Hopefully in year 2, there'll be 2 web developers. If you keep committing and following and getting people to show up and support the startup community, then you could grow it to more developers, and they start to branch out within that main technology hub. And finally, the 4th example here, we start looking at adding game developers such as myself, different types of developers, and then even looking at some fun stuff like music, content creators, art creators, and again, that's how the community is born. So to look at each one of those examples in a little bit more detail, and the titles in each of these little boxes don't matter, but it's more so the colors. These are all similar types of companies building different types of products, but as you can see, all the colors, for the most part, go from one sub-industry to the other. So once you grow it, it allows a lot more to take off. So here's a specific example up in Kelowna, another city in BC here, where 10, 15 years ago, they had a couple of web developers, they had a few things up there, but there wasn't a whole industry in Kelowna. Then you get this company called New Horizon, which is a web developer. They created this game called Club Penguin. Long story short, Disney ended up purchasing it for $450 million, and 7 years later, we've got all these spin-offs. They've attracted the workforce. They've got different companies up there. Again, they've got 30+ tech and entertainment-based companies. But they also now have incubation centers sponsored by the government to get new startups going. You've also got universities and different colleges set up there now to support that industry that they've targeted. So a couple other communities to take a look at quickly here, and again, these are all communities that I've been a part of and have lived in. We've got Boulder, Colorado, which is a mature startup community. Malta, which is a small country in Europe, which is also a mature startup community. And then to contrast that, we'll look briefly at Chilliwack, which is in its very beginnings of trying to attract industry. So take a look at Boulder, Colorado. And Boulder is one of the largest startup communities in the United States. A lot of people, when they go to explore how to grow business or industry within their community, they reference this report called the Boulder Thesis. And basically in there, they outline 4 main points for your community for how you can start to grow it. And these are just principles that you can kind of be guided by. The first one is leaders and feeders. By leaders, I mean entrepreneurs, people that are out there with a vision, trying to make products. And by feeders, I mean all the support network that we've talked about, from the government, investors, workforce, anything that needs to feed a company for it to be successful. The next key point here is make a long-term commitment. Make a plan, target industry, target a workforce, and try to bring them there. Third point is be welcome and inclusive. And I think a few people have touched on this point tonight, is just engaging the community, getting them to show up, getting them to connect the dots between people with needs and people with products. That's what it's all about. And the final point is just engaging the community, getting people to show up to events like this, getting people to come out and help organize. This third example here is a little bit of a different one. Again, another community that I've been a part of. And Malta is a little country in Europe in the middle of the Mediterranean. It's about 30 miles long. And traditionally, they've had around 400,000 people that live there. But over the last however many decades, their population has basically been cut in half. Because again, they're in the middle of the Mediterranean, they have no natural resources, no trees, nothing left to mine, because that all happened hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. So they made a commitment to technology. What could they do with their workforce of a bunch of people with nothing else to do? Well, they got computers, they got technical education in the universities, and today they've got thousands and thousands of technology jobs there. Anywhere from focusing on online casinos, gaming, websites, standard software. And to contrast it, Chilliwack, For those of you who don't know, Chilliwack is just half an hour down the road here. This is where I've set up both of my companies. And it's been a very interesting last 2 years, exploring government incentives and programs and trying to get traction. And again, this is where my point comes. If someone was there to open many of the doors before me, or if there were multiple groups like me trying to do the same thing, it would be much, much easier. Another interesting thing about Chilliwack, about 6 months ago, there's various initiatives in the valley now, and they thought there was about 5 or 10 developers in Chilliwack. As of last month, we discovered that there was actually 20. Last week, we heard that there was another pocket of 20 developers in Chilliwack, so that might even get us to 40, and we had no idea that all these people were in the community. The other cool thing that Chilliwack is working on is they now have 2 co-work spaces, so startups, people like myself, I'm actually moving into one next week. This is what it makes it possible for me to be able to set up my companies. And to tie it back to the skills and the jobs is, you can build that snowball, if you will, and just keep pushing it and picking up momentum along the way, but start with a modular, realistic plan that's targeted as possible. So again, in conclusion here, open the doors once and let as many people as possible go through it. Try to support the community, work together as a community to benefit everyone. Again, come up with a modular plan, figure out who's in your community already, and then import, educate the rest, and make sure that your community is engaged, again, with both leaders and feeders. Just a point to drop here, I'm a startup company. This is an example of a company that needs support. My companies need to be fed in the valley. This is our wine crafting game that we're building that will launch later this year. And it's all about exploring and creating different types of wine. And again, this is just an example of a technology entertainment startup that needs the community support. And that's it. So, yeah, if anyone has any questions, we'll take a few. And if not, we'll drink some wine.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's a startup company, so we gave him $1 million check to help him. Well, we gave him a very nice thank you. We appreciate it a lot. That's worth more than money anytime, or at least tonight. All right, we're going to eat before we go any further. So you heard the instructions, you remember them all. I won't actually repeat them, but you might just go start at the far end. And, have you got something? What do we got? Pardon? You want Brent to start on the reading? Okay. She wants Brent to start the reading, so who am I to argue with a lady? So anyway, you guys can start at the far end, you'll be able to hear. Brent has come from Perrysville, Missouri, and 2 minutes silence because yesterday a big tornado went through his town and killed a couple of people. Well, he's a CAO of the town, and he was down watching a Canucks game. I don't know how he feels about that. He was not even there to help protect his people. I don't mind saying that. He's a good guy. I picked him up at the airport, and he's a great guy. But our heart goes out to him, and what a time when he could have been there to sort of coordinate things. He happened to be here. But we're going to accept what we have. We're grateful to have him, and we're looking forward to him talking to us about his experience in his town, which is about the same size as Hope. And that's why we brought him. It's about the same size town, and they went through similar experiences early on, and how they handled it. And from my perspective, the big thing they did was they didn't run to state or federal people. The people in the town made a decision to make it work, and they got together and they made it work. That's my understanding. I haven't heard him yet. We'll find out what he's done. Brent.
Excuse me.
Why wouldn't we let that table go and eat first?
I think that's
Then
what
we can
that's
go.
what-
Okay, well,
Okay.
we got a lot of people pulling the plow. And,
Well, no.
Okay, you guys go in. Take your plate with you. The plates are on the table and not stacked back there. And you start from the windows and work that way. And the order of the gluten-free is the far end. No, the first end. Far end is not gluten-free.
And I'm one of the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce. And most importantly, what I'm doing here right now is I'm going to tell you about these little green tickets that you got when you came in. I'm going to do a little bit of a shameless plug about the salmon barbecue competition because this is something that's near and dear to my heart, being a two-time competitor and now being involved in the actual organization of it. So the Great Fraser River Salmon Barbecue Competition has provided a swag bag containing all kinds of cool things to do with salmon in promotion of the upcoming salmon barbecue. And we are looking for competing teams. Every team. Am I too loud, Charlie? Sorry. I guess I'm a little bit shorter and closer to the mic here. So everybody has one of these on their table. We are actively looking for teams right now. And start talking to your friends and cooking buddies and barbecue people and see who you might be able to get to happen on a team. This is happening on the same weekend as the carving competition, so we should be getting a really, really good turnout here. So hang on to these little green tickets and hope for your best chance at the swag bag.
Just before Paul comes up, I'm told to recap a little bit of why we're here tonight, what led up to this, for some of you with short memories. Last year, the Houlton District Chamber of Commerce organized a series of 3 meetings under the headings Past, Present, and Future, highlighting our town's socio-economic situation as it was 20 plus years ago and as it is at the present day, 2016. And generating ideas of where the community might want to go in the years ahead. Tonight, we follow up on those meetings and start laying the foundation for such a future. Let's recap. Over the past 25 to 30 years, Hope lost approximately 1,700 gainful employment positions, largely by the demise of our primary resource industry, mining and logging, and the subsequent closure of merchant supply stores. A portion of those lost jobs have been replaced, some in the public sector, but most of the replacements have come in the service sector with part-time and or seasonal, often minimum wage positions. This Chamber of Commerce is not just continuing, but stepping up efforts to improve the community's infrastructure and readiness to attract secondary industries, manufacturing and servicing that will provide year-round gainful employment. And tonight our keynote speaker is Brent Barrett, the City Administrator of Perryville, a small town in Missouri comparable to the size of a small town of Hope. And we look forward to him coming up here, and we've been excited for many days thinking about it. So Brent, come on up.
Paul, I might need some help. As he gets me set up, let me give you a little background. I was born and raised in Perryville, Missouri. We're about 90 miles south of St. Louis, 90-minute drive, which is somewhat similar, as I've come to learn from your guys' distance to Vancouver. So very similar in size, I think, similar in backgrounds. And as they alluded to earlier last night, we did have a tornado, a fairly substantial tornado. So I woke up this morning seeing Perryville on CNN for things you don't want to see your hometown on CNN for. My mother, my several close friends, people my wife had known since she was in kindergarten, so for 35 years, have completely lost their homes. My sister-in-law, I believe, might be moving in with us for a little bit because her house tore off the roof, and her kids had to poke holes in it to keep the ceilings from falling in on them. But by the grace of God, you know, they're all okay. So anyway, all of your thoughts and prayers are much appreciated. This is who we are. We were established in 1831. We were an agrarian community, very much so for the first 3/4 of our existence. In the 1950s, we started to change a little bit. The branding we did in recent years, I'm rather proud of it. You can see the father and the mother and the child there, because we are a family-first community. It was very important to us to have a cross in there to represent churches, and we have industry, homes, and schools. And then we're standing on the foundation of agriculture. And our motto is plant your family here. We want to be the place that people want to raise their kids at. Some of the things that make us special, and there's nothing that I want to tell you tonight that is rocket science. There's nothing that's unique to Perryville, and there's nothing that hasn't been duplicated repeatedly by lots of other places in whole or in part. Some of our history is very much a foundation of faith. The Lutheran Church Missouri Synod was formed in Perry County in 1838. There's the Concordia College where Lutheran pastors go to learn to be a pastor or a Lutheran teacher. It has moved to St. Louis, but it started in Perry County in a little town called Altenburg. We also have the first Catholic seminary west of the Mississippi River in America. So in 1818, the American Vincentians moved into Perryville. This is from their church. It's 200 years old. And they set up here's an inside picture, but they set up their seminary there, and DePaul University, and I can't remember the other one, St. John's, but there are several Vincentian universities around. So that kind of all started in Perryville. Brief city history, we were incorporated in 1831. At some point, our town fathers forgot to file some paperwork and let the incorporation lapse, so we had to start over, but we still claim that date. And in the 1950s, which we were very agricultural till then, but we had 2 shoe factories in town. The town fathers saw the writing on the wall that this wasn't sustainable. All our eggs were in one basket, so to speak. They were worried because a lot of our kids, you know, and this is still something we struggle with for different jobs, and I'll get into that later, but the kids weren't able to grow up there and then live there and raise their family. We didn't have enough jobs to sustain our population. So kids were having to leave not because they wanted to, but because they had to. So that was what we set out as a community to fix. So in 1954, as an offshoot of the Chamber of Commerce, we crafted the Perryville Development Corporation. And I can take no credit for most of what I'm going to tell you tonight. You know, my dad was 4 when this happened, so it was a very early concept. We were one of the first in America with this concept of moving forward with the Development Corporation. At the time, it was for-profit. They were incorporated under the state laws of Missouri, and they sold 20,000 shares for $10 each. So they literally, the business leaders at the time literally went door to door, house to house, and they sold, you know, I love the name of your community because that's what we were selling. We were selling hope, and we were selling a prayer. And if you look at inflation, $10 now would be about $90 American, so that's about $1.8 million as a community they would have generated in today's terms had they replicated this. In 1957, a couple years later, 3 years later, they made their first purchase. So my guess is it probably took 3 years to sell $20,000 worth of hops with nothing to gain for it. They purchased 24 acres in McBride, which is now in the flood bottoms. Perry County is a triangular-shaped county on the Mississippi River, so flooding 1993, we were just about wiped out in that part of the county by flooding. Again in 95, so in their wisdom, they bought land in the flood bottoms. But they took a risk, and they were very willing to fail. So they got an assist from the local bank, the Bank of Missouri. Started as the Bank of Perryville in the 1800s. Their sign in town says, "We've changed our name once in the last 125 years. We're sorry for the inconvenience." Which is a big deal, because if you look at the recession, there's a lot of banks that switched hands, and that's uncommon. But the bank was bought in, and they found a company, and they built them a building. So this Premier Panels Company of St. Louis. That building became part of what is now Gilster Mary Lee. So you'll hear that repeated a lot of times. We weren't successful the first time or even the second time, but each step moved us forward. So this was their building, the first one they built in 1957. These little stars are a spec building, so it was a speculation building. They thought if they had a building, they might be able to lure a business. So each time you see a star, know that it was a spec building. And this is what we started at in 1957. This is the Gilster Mary Lee complex today. This is that original building right here. And they have grown exponentially. It's not the company that first moved in there. It's the company that come and followed it later. They make Gilster Mary Lee was something that we invested in then as a community. So the Development Corporation took about 20% of their money, and they found a startup, much like the young man that was here earlier talking about his startup. And they invested a good chunk, 20%, $40,000 into this company. It was a failing mill. So it was a flour mill that was failing. They made biscuits and a couple other things. A young man at the time bought into them, bought out the competition, so to speak. We bought into him, believing in him. Gilster Mary Lee now makes over 800 products for over 500 different brand names. So great value if you purchase your stuff at Walmart. There's a good chance your cereal was made in Perryville. Hy-Vee, IGA, Hospitality. There's just a whole gob of companies that they make their cereal for. The story is that this is a gentleman that started a company, but these trucks at any one time, there's a truck in all 58 states, or all 48 states, continental, and also Canada. So if you ever see this Gilster Mary Lee truck, if you look for him, you'll think of me now, because that's home. That's Perryville. They also are the exclusive provider for the Chick-fil-A chicken coat. That's all made in Illinois, right across the river from us, but it's distributed out of Perryville. They have 1,600 employees now in Perryville, and these are low-skilled, low-education jobs, but they're very important jobs. So the city owns our gas company. Gilster Mary Lee buys about 50% of our gas. TG buys the other 20%. Our unemployment rate's under 3%. You know, and at any given time, I believe there's probably 5% of at least Americans that don't want to work. No matter what the opportunity is, they just don't want to work. So for us to be at a full employment of under 3% right now is pretty incredible. They have $900 million in sales annually. And each year, St. Louis Business Journal recognizes them as one of the largest privately held business corporations in the St. Louis area. So we'll get back to spec buildings. In 1964, we did it again. $450 per acre at the time for 25 acres. We added some more land eventually, and we built another spec building to house a confection products company, which was a candy factory. We haven't had a candy factory at any point in my life, but I was born in 1975. So again, they took a risk, they built a building, and it failed, and it went away. Somebody else come in, and they too failed. But the third time, we had a company come, another startup. They were out of Kansas City and just traveling through. They met with the Development Corporation, sold them on this vacant building, and now they built this. They have 100 employees. They make plastic products It could be anything from trash bags to newspaper bags, the little blue ones, to mulch bags, to rock bags. And then this same, right next to them, we had another company come in and they make foam and foam products. So the foam insulation that you find in houses, a lot of that's made here. If you buy a washing machine and it has the styrofoam to protect it, a lot of that's made in Perryville. And this past December, we had another disaster, and most of this, as you see it here now, was completely devastated. They actually allowed smoking, unbeknownst to us, in their break room, and one of their employees, there's only 4 people in the entire building, again, by the grace of God, but they didn't get their cigarette out. And as you can imagine, styrofoam goes in very fast, and it just took off to the building. Within 15 minutes, the entire campus was engulfed. The only thing we were able to save was the building that was sprinkled. No loss of life, and they're working now to rebuild. So they are going to reinvest in the community. And, it'll be better for them. It'll be much more efficient. As I said, some wins may be temporary. Our 1970s, we went to California and we recruited the Saberliner Corporation. We were making airplanes. We were literally putting together airplanes in Little Perryville, Missouri. They were struggling with union wages in California, the cost of living, lots of different things, and we said, hey, we got an airport. It was a World War II leftover. They used to do training there. Federal government didn't want it, so they dumped it on us, and we needed to do something with it. So we went and got Saberliner. They're no longer there. They're defunct. We're on our second aviation corporation, which I meet with Friday, and it appears they're catering as well, but I think we might have something in the wings lined up. It's just between us. That's a secret. But please don't tell anybody. So we also lured the Missouri Conservation Commission to locate a forestry headquarters in Perryville. They are still there. We had a poultry butchering factory gone. You know, it's completely gone, but they expanded in the 70s with the help of the Development Corporation, and then this is that candy products, and they are closed as well. Well, some wins are temporary, other ones are home runs, and you keep trying, you try, and you try until you get one. In 1987, this was our home run, and this is what perhaps one of 3 or 4 singular events that changed the trajectory of Perryville. Our Development Corporation built a relationship with a Japanese company named Toyota Gasai. They have about 70,000 employees now, locations all over the world, and we were their first North American plant. Again, in the middle of nowhere, the closest car manufacturing was in St. Louis, but we got them. And they started small. They started with 20 employees in a building. And you can see that the Development Corporation wasn't out to make money. Their mission was never to get rich. Their mission was to move the community forward. So they sold 40 acres for $24,000, which was a loss. And they also spent $40,000 to level the site. They had made some investments. They had the ability to do that because of those shares they sold. It was a home run. TG Perryville now, or it was Missouri originally, it's now TG USA. The mother plant is in North America, is right there. They oversee plants in Perryville, in Indiana, Mississippi, and Mexico. It's kind of hard to read, but they make anything chrome on a vehicle, they make airbags. You know, you might have seen Takata is just getting ready to settle their $1 billion lawsuit. TG is one of their biggest competitors, and they've got several of these companies post Takata. They've come to TG because TG is doing things the right way. They make steering wheels, they make dashboards, they make all kinds of interior parts. So this is TG now. Building 1 was right here, little bitty building. Building 2, Building 3. We have this, I'll get into this in a little bit, but this was a different building they had just bought because another company had went under. So they moved into there. This is TG, these are parking lots here. This is a brand new building, a chrome. They just really geared up, hired 200 new employees for chrome. This is the TNT Plastics, which was a spec building. Here's another spec building that was a warehouse. I'll talk about that in a second. That was a candy confection company. And then this was another spec building. And this one in particular, they sat on for several years. They had finished it around 06, 07, right before the economy tanked. So they sat on it for several years, and it's not even used industrially anymore. We have a special needs workshop that has kind of moved in, and they do their case management out of that building. We started with shoe companies, as I told you. They closed, as they did all over America, and they moved overseas. Solar Press moved into this vacant building. Solar Press later moved, I'll show you on the next slide where they moved to, but this is now a Gilster Mary Lee warehouse. So you'll see a trend as Gilster had opportunities to grow, we had opportunities to provide them a building. So it became very organic. Once we had them, they continued to grow in Perryville. Solar Communications built this big building, which essentially, it was a junk mail. I don't know if you guys in Canada get junk mail, but we used to get it every time you come home, there'd be gobs. That would probably came from Perryville too. So, you know, as the world went by way of email, junk mail became less popular. So they wound up closing. TG has moved in, and in front, TG, we have, as I said, we have more jobs than people. We need more people. TG partnered with very little help with the city with the Rankin Technical Institute, which in the Midwest is a very well-respected industrial training school, and they located in Perryville. So now TG's got a built-in feeder, and they're paying their kids, their young adults, to go to school, and then they'll do a month of school, then they'll work in the factory for a month. So they're getting both sides of it. So it's really going to lift us. As I said, it's okay to fail. You know, in the 1990s, we purchased 15 more acres. They built another spec building, which was going to house a box company, Tennessee Corrugated Box. You know, the 90s isn't that long ago. Shortly after that company failed. But Gilster, again, looking for an expansion, they wound up buying that, locating their warehouse in Perryville. The Development Corporation was instrumental in our establishing a higher education center. So Perryville, I said, is located 90 miles south of St. Louis. We're also located 30 miles north of Cape Girardeau, which is a town of about 40,000 people. They had in southeast Missouri, that's where my undergraduate was from. But SEMO and Mineral Area College, which is located about an hour away, moved into the seminary, which is now, the priests had moved on. So they left this vacant building. And you know, at one time it had incredible artifacts. They had a Gutenberg Bible. You know, they had all these things in there. And it was sold in auctions to Christians all over the world. But they left us this building, so these two organizations moved in. Later, SEMO's moved out. Mineral Area is still there, but they're struggling. I got a meeting with them next week because in America, as our economy gets better, our kids go to school less. So they're not needing to go to school because they go get a job right away. So their enrollment's down. We're trying to figure out how to help them. But we do have Rankin. They're on the upswing, and they're going to hopefully carry us forward. This is my favorite part of the story, to be honest. If you want to talk about community development and you want to talk about taking risks and you want to talk about being selfless, the PDC made a significant amount of money. As Gilster got bigger, their investment turned stronger, and they made quite a bit of money. And they had some smart people, some accountants and some attorneys, and they looked at it and they knew if they cashed out, the federal government was going to take so much of their investment, so much of their increment. They decided to forego any profits, any opportunity to make themselves money, and they went not for profit, forever turning that profit that they had made into an engine to develop Perryville in the right ways. So they get, Gilster Mary Lee is promised every year to buy back about 100 shares of stock. They're valued at between $900 and $1,100 most years. And they have a 20-member board of directors. Their mission statement is simple. The purpose of the corporation shall be to aid and promote new and existing business and industry for the city of Perryville, Missouri, and Perry County. So in these 20, and I'll show you the next slide, but these are very influential members of the community. They're the bankers from Bank of Missouri. They're the folks that own Buckeyes, which is a retail store, kind of a hardware store slash farm implement store. They got 10 locations. They're on there, the local construction company, the local accountant, there's a local attorney on there, the judge is on there. So these are very affluent people, not in terms of necessarily money in their wallets, but in terms of influence in their community. And they volunteer their time on this unpaid board of directors to help move us forward. When I came in, I've been back in Perryville for about 7.5 years, and when I come back, the mayor at the time, we had done a horrible job on relationships, and we were failing miserably. The city had my predecessor kind of cut us off. I'm sure he thought he was doing the right thing, but it set us back perhaps 10 or 12 years. We were no longer working with the county. The Perryville Development Corporation, I remember sitting in Board of Alderman meetings, and one of my aldermen would turn his back. He was so mad at this committee, which he thought there was a fight over a golf course, as all communities quarrel, and it's usually over pretty stupid stuff. He wanted an 18-hole golf course, the alderman didn't, so he literally turned his back when the guy talked because he didn't want anything to do with it. So those are the things that we had to work on. When I got there, our economic developer had left. He went to the St. Louis metro area. So we kind of paused the tape and we stopped for 6 months, and I did my job and I did that job just to keep us going. I followed up on leads so we could talk as a community about what we needed to do next. So what we wound up doing is we recreated the office. There's 2 members of my elected board that serve on this board for the Economic Development Authority. There's 2 members of the county commission, which is our county government. There's a 3-member board, and 2 of them are on the board. And there's 2 members of the Perryville Development Corporation who own our industrial park. And then there's 2 members of the old, what was left over from the old way of doing things. We brought them along for continuity and for organizational history. But those 8 people now direct economic development in the city. And it's very powerful because we have the city who has the infrastructure, the county who is the chief governing body in the area, and we also have the development corporation that owns the property. These are some of our homegrown businesses. Bank of Missouri, I kind of told their story. Heckley's Bakery is a 4th-generation bakery that's widely known. Rischerti Floor Covering is, they do floors all over the Midwest. I have about 100 employees, do about $20 million in business. Stoney's is a meat processor. They have probably 30 different kinds of bratwurst. Canadians eat bratwurst. Yeah, so we had 30 different flavors there in Perryville. Buckeyes I touched on. Again, started in Perryville and has grown to 10 different retail locations in 3 states. East Perry Lumber. We do have a thriving lumber industry. They export hardwoods all over the world. Perry County Stave, they make barrel staves. Most of them go to France, some of them go to Tennessee for wine and for whiskey. Mary Jane's is our newest venture. She was a young lady who left. She was about my age. She left Perryville for 20 years and did hospitality, come back and open a restaurant there in our downtown, and single-handedly perhaps helped revitalize our downtown along with the revitalization committee. Earthworks and Semco, or the decorative stone that you see on the face of buildings. It's kind of neat because Semco is headquartered in Perryville, but they have locations in Chesterfield, which is one of the more affluent suburbs of St. Louis. Also Columbus, Ohio, which is a very affluent area of Columbus. So it's the reverse effect that Little Perryville is the headquarters, and St. Louis and Columbus have affiliates. So it's been, all of those have been homegrown. This is perhaps my favorite story, Robinson Construction. 50 years ago, a gentleman started a plumbing company. His son returned from Vietnam as a disabled veteran, combat disabled veteran, and joined his father. the building, that small building at City Hall's, and I know I haven't shared a picture, but 20 years ago, Robinson Construction was in our building. And there might be 7 offices there, maybe, room for 12 or 13 employees if you count the warehouse. They built this and they moved, and a rising tide raises all ships. So as TG got going, Robinson's was at the same time transitioning to a full building contractor. And they got in good, and it was a very reciprocal relationship. TG needed a building, Robinson built a building. They're doing probably $80 or $90 million a year in industrial construction all over the Midwest now. It's one of the highest respected firms. They do design, build, contracting. They work for Nestle, Purina. They work for Procter & Gamble. They work for TG. They work for just a host of very highly respected companies. They do industrial manufacturing. And to give you an example, so Frank has hit it quite well. He's done quite well for himself. So what does he do? He builds this conference room, which is very similar to this. He can sit about 250 people. And he opens it to the community anytime he wants to, anytime we need it. If we have a chamber meeting, we have a chamber meeting here. We had an announcement I'll get to in a little bit where the lieutenant governor and other delegates were coming in. We had it here. We tried to bring in art show. We have it here. He never wants anything for it. He sends his staff to set it up. He sends his staff to clean it up. This is his office. And most of the people in Perryville would be amazed to see that, because it's not an office that most of us are used to in Perryville. This is a big city office. And Frank's been a big city supporter in a small town. The thing that makes us tick more than anything, and again, this isn't rocket science, this isn't unique to Perryville, but we have people who really genuinely care about the community. All of these are examples. The Park Center was done by bond issue, so that was a tax levy. People voted on that. We put that in. It's about a 100,000 square foot building. It's got a 400 seat theater here. There's a library, 3,500 square feet here. There's 2 basketball courts. There's an Olympic-sized pool, racquetball, weight rooms. So very similar to you guys with this wonderful building with the ice rink and the curling. We have a park center too for a small community, which nobody understands or believes until we show them that we really have it. This field is right outside the park center. Like if you would walk down here, you would see this field. The picture doesn't do it justice, but all this is decorative stone. The wall is, all this was done with community resources. There was a group of fathers who wanted their kids to play baseball on a nicer field at the time through the American Legion. They sold, you can barely see in the back, there's billboards on the fence which made up the fence. And they went business to business, and businesses sponsored it. And that's what made this whole field develop. Our deal was if they would develop the field, I thought I had a picture, there's a huge pavilion that also overlooks it. But if they would do all that, the city would put lights on the baseball field. So we got probably $500,000 invested for about $70,000 of lights at the time. This was a young man that was born and raised in Perryville. His family migrated from Laos when he was very little. He went away to college, picked up Frisbee golf. He come back and he asked the council, can I do this here? And he went door to door, business to business, and he raised the money himself. All we had to do was give him space. I think we had $400 worth of labor in putting his concrete in. But everything else, he worked to get donated. This was an Eagle Scout project, and it overlooks, our handicap accessible playground. But again, members of the community stepped forward and they said, hey, we see a need here. We'll build a playground if you'll give us a space to do it. This is our newest project here. This is another baseball field. So we had this incredible field, which we've been told rivals most minor league fields. For boys, we didn't have anything for girls, which was kind of worked out good, because the next thing we knew is we had the father of a young lady come along, and he wanted something better for his kid to play on. So he did the same thing with volunteer labor, donations. He developed his field very nice, and then the city's compliment to that was, if you develop the field, we'll add a playground, and we're all better off. The Bank of Missouri soccer complex, you know, we were visiting at our table about soccer. My kids are into soccer. We didn't always have soccer. Soccer come along after I was a young man. In the 90s, we started getting soccer, and it was a family moved in, bought the McDonald's, brought these St. Louis ideas, these big city ideas, and he wanted soccer for his kids. So he formed a group called the Optimists, and then he again went door to door in the city, said, okay, if you develop a soccer park, we'll buy this unusable flood zone that's in the middle of town. It's been a mosquito haven, it's been unsightly for years. We'll buy it, we'll give it to you, and you develop it. So that's exactly what they did. And it took 20 years probably from start to finish, and we let them name the fields, so they sold the naming rights to each of the fields. They have tournaments twice a year. We'll get about 80 to 110 teams in town. They have a 10-person volunteer board that runs it. Every dollar they make at that tournament is reinvested in the field. So we don't provide concessions to parents. Like if my kid plays a noon game, I have to work the concession stand at 1 o'clock. And as a community, we've accepted that because every dollar we're making comes right back into it. So there's a presentation area. The gentleman that brought soccer to Perryville died later. His wife donated about $70,000 to make this presentation area with fountains rolling through it. They built a concession stand. I'll show you as I continue talking. This will be our, hopefully it'll work. Perhaps not. What I'd like to show you is an overhead of that field. We'll see if it'll let me. I don't believe it will. But again, it's 10 fields. So we have 10 baseball fields, about 4 of which have been redone by parents and people that care. And we have an entire soccer complex that was done very much in the same fashion. Our only contribution to that was we agreed to put in a bathroom because we were taking porta potties to them, and American kids do unspeakable things at porta potties. We find dead fish in there among lots of other things. So we wanted to get out of that. We said, hey, if you'll do this, we'll do that. A couple years ago, we had a gentleman retire, never served in the military. His father did. He was a warden in Missouri's only death penalty prison. He retired. His wife was a former post office worker. And he wanted to celebrate veterans, and he wanted to celebrate the contributions of Perry County veterans in particular. Perryville is a very religious community, and we also love our veterans very much. So they had the idea that they were going to start with this little bitty thing, and they were going to sell bricks. It wasn't a memorial wall and that you had to pass away, but it was a wall of honor that I put my father in there, mostly out of fun. He'd never make it to Canada probably, but now at least his name's in there. So we bought him a gift as a family. It was $300. They had larger ones for $500. But the community loved it. This side is raising of the flag at Iwo Jima. On the opposite side, which I don't show here, we had 4 Perry Countyans die in the Vietnam War. So we have had a picture commission that has the Vietnam Wall on it, and there's reflections. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C., the wall reflects back. And there's 4 reflections looking at the wall, and those are the faces of the 4 people that died from Perryville. But in 5 short years, they've had to add 4 different expansions just to keep up, because it's been so well received. And again, the city's only contribution was that we said, we got a spot here that we're tired of mowing. If you want to develop this, we'll let you have it. So they did, and we take over the insurance, and we mow all the way around it and help maintain it. That same man was invigorated by what he's done. So the Vietnam War was not very well received at the time by America, and we we spit on the veterans when they came home, and we didn't give them the respect that they had earned. And there's a lot of hard feelings, and there's still a lot of hurt in hearts because of how they were treated. So after that wall went over so well, there's 4 traveling walls that travel America, and you can sign up for them. It's $7,000 or whatever to bring them in. And he did that, and we gave him our soccer park. And it was a huge deal, and there's tears, and there was a mourning, and it was a big deal. So he said, you know, well, why do it temporary? Let's do it permanent. So he set out to build an exact replica of the Vietnam Wall. So the granite is coming from India. Every name that's on the wall is going to be on our wall. It's going to be misspelled if it's misspelled there. We've crafted a relationship with Washington, D.C. that's going to allow us to, if there's a video showing at their wall, it's going to show at our wall. Again, it didn't cost us anything. Well, I take that back. We had to extend utilities. So he started with $1 million donation. There was one person, I still don't know that person's name, but the traveling wall was so well received. He said, hey, let me give you $1 million to do something. So we struggled a little bit, but we're up to $4 million now, 2 years later. We need another $4 million to complete the vision, which is a wall, a museum, Perry County History Museum. It is a chapel, so you can do burials or funerals there. But it's also a full military graveyard. And if you ever see me again in 10 years, I hope we've negotiated that with the federal government and the state government, because it would be a very big deal to make us, again, it's showing us a sign of appreciation. So it kind of in summary, why Perryville? You know, I think first and foremost, our foundation of faith is found in everything we do, and it's who we are, it's who we want to be, it's how we lead. We try, we struggle occasionally, but that's what we want to do. We have a community that cares incredibly about where they live and who they are, and wanting something better. You know, as Americans, this could be the first generation that's not absolutely convinced that the generation that follows us will have life better than us. You know, forever that was very true, and each father knew his son's life was going to be better than his own. We're not so sure about that anymore. So this is what they're trying to do. We have an agrarian background with an unquestioned work ethic. If you talk to any of those companies that have expanded in Perryville, the first thing they'll cite is the work ethic of our people. It would be easier to go someplace with an 8 or 10 or 12% unemployment rate. Instead, they keep coming back. You know, the company that just burned, I didn't know if they'd come back. It's hard to find good employees. And the first reason he said, yeah, we're coming back because your people work harder than anybody else. And those are the things certainly the city can't take credit for. You know, we don't try not to sit back and hope good things will happen. Our forefathers took risks. There were certainly failures, but those failures were temporary. And each time we moved the change forward, you know, to use a football term, to make things happen. Relationships and cooperation are critical. You know, as I said earlier, the mayor asked me to really work on that. And every month I'm at the chamber board meeting, and every month I'm at the development corporation meeting, and every month I'm at the EDA meeting, and every month I'm visiting the Perry County Commission. And often I just go down there and say, hey, what's going on? And we dialogue for 20 minutes. And quarterly we get together as a community for an emergency management meeting, because you know, the worst time as we found out during this disaster we just went through, if you wait to build relationships until you have a disaster, you're already weeks behind the curve, because you have to know who those players are, and you have to know what everybody's contribution is. Government's role, quite frankly, for us has been to support and to participate and to stay out of the way. There's oftentimes we'll see a need. Our downtown was dying. It was literally dying. We had 30%, 35%, 40% vacancy rate, and we knew we had a problem. I talked to the board and they gave us permission, so we raised awareness. We shared a map of all the vacancies, all the black holes, and when you took this map 3 by 3 and you blacked out the places that were dead, the places that weren't producing, you put it on the wall and you brought the downtown community in. You said, look, this is who we are. It was an eye-opening deal, and everybody wanted to jump in to help. So for about a year, we led downtown revitalization meetings, and they got more and more traction. And we backed out, and now they're going and they're moving. They started Bikers on the Square, which will get 500, 600, 700 bikes that come into Perryville for a weekend. It always begins with a blessing of the bike. There's a strong veterans presence. The Vietnam veterans typically lead our parade, so we're very true to our foundation, but we're bringing in these events. Every weekend between April and October, they have a downtown cruise in. So we'll get 80 to 120 old cars, and folks my dad's age walk car to car and remember their girlfriend sitting next to them, or they tell stories, and it's downtown. And again, we started it, and then we stepped back. And we did the same thing with the Community Foundation. We kind of helped raise awareness, we helped get it started, and then we step back and we try to let them do it so we can go to the next thing. As any good presenter would do, I'm going to make a shameless plug. The Great American Eclipse, if you guys haven't heard about this, it's supposed to be an event of biblical proportions. It's the first time for Perry County in 500 years. 1442, I believe, was the last time that an eclipse started on the west coast of America, went through to the east coast, and crossed over Perry County. The hot spot, 2 minutes and 40 seconds and like 2/10 is the sweetest spot. That is the longest duration of total black anywhere in the world. And we're like 1/10 of a second less. So Carbondale's got NASA, which is like 45 minutes away, but maybe we got somebody from Hope if you guys come see us. So it'll be a big deal. There's projections or people that are going to come north, push up, or south and push up, and north and come down, and we're right on the belt. And by the grace of God, if we do this right, and 7 years later, there's one that goes east or goes south to north, and we're right in the X. So if you drew an X on America, we happen to be right in the crosshairs. So we're really investing a lot of time and energy in this. We're expecting as many as 30,000 people, we've been told by Mizzou. We've crafted relationships with folks in Europe and South America, and some guy from Turkey who's got all kinds of world records, and somehow he found us. So we're going to enjoy it and see what comes out of that. And as a parting word of wisdom, my favorite author is this guy by the name of Theodore Geisel. You might know him as Dr. Seuss. In his book, The Lorax, he said, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. And I think that more than anything, that has defined who we are as a community. Somebody's got to be the person. Somebody's got to just get it started, because I think people want to help. All of us are the same. I immensely enjoyed the hospitality. I hope I could move here tomorrow, if it wasn't so far away. My folks need me, but everybody I met has been nicer than in person before. I feel like I've known Paul my whole life, and we've just spent a couple days together. So you guys have been incredible, and who we are, I believe, is who you are. All it takes is one. Somebody that's willing to give their time. God's not giving us any more time. You can have more money than the next person, but you can't have more time. So when people give of their time, that is the most valuable thing that we can offer a community. This is me. Beer, Ick is how you pronounce it. My email here and my phone number. I got business cards. I thank you guys again. This has been an incredible experience. I still can't believe I'm here. For whatever reason, the good Lord sent us a tornado while I was gone, maybe, because I would have messed it up if I was there. That's what I kind of have to think. But here I am with you, and my mayor said this is more important. This is where I'm supposed to be. So with that, I take any questions that you guys might have for me.
The next question is, it says Brad here. Is that you here?
That's me.
I'm sure your wife and your children are glad you shaved.
I hate shaving, so I'll go from a beard to a goatee to a tub to a clean shaven. I don't shave on weekends, so you guys just call me on a goatee day.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Brent, On behalf of the community, as mayor, I'd like to thank you for coming. You're obviously a man of your word and a man of integrity, because a lesser man would have bailed and said, hey, I got things to do quick. So it was nice you stuck around to honor your commitments to the District of Hope and surrounding areas. And please keep us posted on, you know, if you need any help from up north. Maybe there's something Canadians can do for you.
And that means a lot. And we will take every prayer you guys can offer. It's the most important thing we need at this point. I was visiting earlier with some folks, not to digress, but we moved from our emergency response to our recovery. So we've stopped the bleeding, and now we have to sew it up. And that's what we're going to start working on for the next several months. But thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Where's the responsibility for the maintenance and upkeep of the sport fields lie? With the individual organizations, or is there a partnership between the city and the organizations?
It depends a little bit. We'll charge the Little League just the money it takes for us, our time and efforts. The Optimists have decided that they will run our soccer leagues. So I don't want to do that as a city. If I got a group of volunteers and parents who are willing to do it, I'll mow their grass all day long and twice on Sunday. So it depends on the group, it depends on their need, their level of commitment. It's a lot to expect somebody to mow a soccer field twice a week as a volunteer. So we'll typically do those kind of things.
And I heard you say that you provide the insurance for them?
Yeah.
The city provides the insurance.
So if they build on, and you know, where I live, the cheapest, the best way is sovereign immunity, which is the cities have. So if they'll build it on our property, we'll provide insurance for it. Yes, ma'am.
Do you provide the land,
Yes.
allow them to build,
Allow them to build things that make us better. They can
but
do,
the city
yes.
remains owning the land?
Yes.
And the building is owned by the person or the corporation that built it?
So they haven't built buildings for us. We own the park center. That was done through a tax issue. But they built structures. They built ball fields. They built like the concession stand that they did put together. We as soon as it's built, it's ours. So they'll build it.
Built, the city owns it?
And we own it.
Did the city contribute financially up to providing the land?
No.
And the community went out and
Yeah.
found the funds to actually build the building?
Yeah.
Knowing that the city would own the building?
They were very okay. They didn't want to own the building. They didn't want to maintain it. They didn't want to insure it. They didn't want to pay utilities on it. But they needed it to complete their vision. So we needed them to complete our vision. So it was very reciprocal. But they knew they were building it to give it to us.
Going back to the very beginning, when you had PDC?
Perryville Development Corporation, yes,
Was that a
ma'am.
private corporation owned by private individuals?
No, it was birthed by the Chamber of Commerce. So it was an offshoot of the Chamber of Commerce is how it initially started. You had to be a chamber member to be a member of the Development Corporation.
As my first chamber event ever, is the Chamber of Commerce part of the government or individual entity?
No, it's very much an individual 501c3 under the American Tax Code. So they are very separate from us. It is a not-for-profit.
Anyway, I'd just like to say that this lady who doesn't understand any English, she's from Spud. Her friends are all here from Spud. And she said that she's glad to be here today, and that they have a ton of money. Anyway, they want to build these windmills that go around and generate power. So I would like to thank the mayor for the wind we had last night. I want to tell you we only have that wind twice a year. So I think you should look into, before you build more than one of these mills, make sure you build. So, one being good. Shut up.
Excuse me, you know what?
Okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down. This lady, it's okay if I sit down?
Great.
Thank you very much.
I apologize. I was quite done in front of the PDC, so when you also know that in the slideshow there, PDC then became non-profit.
Right.
And it became non-profit for what purpose again? To put back to the community?
Yes, because they had been blessed in such a way that if they accepted their profits, if they took the money and ran, they would have all made money, but half of it would have went to the government. So they would have been better themselves, but they forego those profits so they can keep all that money and then simply just keep reinvesting it over and over into the community.
And the PDC is still an actual entity?
Absolutely, they have about $7 million in assets to this day.
Excellent. Good job on your town, by the way.
Well, thank you.
We definitely need something here.
On your community profile, how does your housing prices relate to St. Louis? And how do you find, is the next generation staying in town, or are they, do you have what is the demographic like? Is it young families, or are you finding it aging as well?
So housing, and we visited a little bit earlier about housing. You can buy we don't have a bad part of town. I get the same feeling that you guys don't have a bad part. But you can buy for $110,000, $120,000, you can buy a nice 3-bedroom house. It's probably dated, it might be 60 to 80 years old, but it's been well maintained. Same house in St. Louis, similar size, would cost you considerably more. Our median household income is about $43,000, in large part because of our manufacturing. Those aren't necessarily the highest wage earners. It's good work, it's consistent, but you don't necessarily get rich working on the line, but it is very stable. Since I've been home, we don't have the ability anymore to get a 200-person new manufacturer to come to town. We don't have the workforce. So what we've focused on now is smaller companies of higher quality. So Bank of Missouri, although they were started in Perryville, they had the need to build a data center, and it would have been easier for them to go to Cape, where the university's at with 12,000 students. They could have had a constant churn of employees, but we worked with them and they stayed true to their roots and they put it in Perryville. So these are college jobs now we're able to bring back. Citizens Electric, who provides our electric, was located a county above us. We put a road in which allowed them to build their headquarters in Perryville. They were in floodplain, so they were looking to move anyway. We said, hey, if you'll move to Perryville, we'll put a road in for them. So they made it very affordable for them, and then we'll have them forever. And those are, $180,000, $200,000 jobs, $1,000-a-year job for the CEO. But then there's a host of engineers and technical, even their linemen are making $35 or $40 an hour, which is a very high wage for Perryville. So the thought is, once we got them, we would be able to keep them, and we didn't expect everybody to move to Perryville necessarily immediately, but as those folks retired, we would get the next wave. So that's how we've turned our energy now.
Yes, sir. I was just wondering if you guys, or the PDC, is still continuing to build spec buildings, or does that pass now?
The last spec building kind of left a sour taste in their mouth. They certainly lost money, which wasn't unusual for them. We haven't built anything recent, but we're talking about it again. I attend their meetings, so I know what they're kind of talking about. I think within the next couple of years, you'll see that again. And the cool thing about the spec buildings is even the building of them is a good for the economy. So you're putting local construction companies to work, local plumbing companies to work, local manufacturers, painters and tapers. Everybody kind of comes together. You're buying the material locally from another place, and then you might sit on a building for a couple of years, or you might find a perfect fit immediately. Well, again, I'm humbled. Thank you for letting me come visit with you guys, and thank you for all your hospitality.
I have often heard, and I've often quoted, a famous man once said, anticipation is greater than realization. I often tell my kids to get over it. Yeah, I thought it was going to be great, not as great as it was. That's the rule. That thinking of is greater than the actual happening. And I can tell you, Brent, we had a lot of anticipation about you coming, and I'll tell you, the realization was even ahead of our anticipation. I'm so impressed. So impressed. It's not often you see a smart, successful, good-looking person with a very humble attitude and a lot of knowledge. And we saw it tonight. Take that back to Missouri, Brent, because we're really proud to mention it, really pleased you. You came, and he came, I'll tell you what happened. We got on the phone, Paul, the Nestle's man, he got on the computer, found Forbes magazine to talk about these guys. So we come to the chamber meeting and said, you know, give us the information. We said, you know, we should, and this guy here graciously said to Paul, anybody wants to phone me, give my number, I'm happy to help, whatever we can do. So we decided we would try and bring him. So we got on the phone, Paul and I got on the phone, and I introduced myself, and I said to him that we got a couple of rather silly questions. One is, are you going to be free on August 1st? And he looked and said, yes, I am. And the next thing is, we would like you to come and speak to us if we can afford you. Well, they said, just pick up my expenses. I said, that's incredible. He said, the way I view it, you guys got a problem, if I can help, that's great, because maybe I'll have a problem next time and you can help. And I said to him, you know, you sound to me like a New Testament Christian. As a matter of fact, I am, he said. I said, good for you, so are we. So just the connection with Paul, finding him in that maze that's on here, that's way beyond my comprehension. I really appreciate it. It comes out of it, but somebody else has got to get it out of there. It ain't coming to me. And for Paul to come and to hear that story tonight, it's so great. I will sleep well tonight, even though I'll be out of bed by 3:15 because I got to get back to the airport tomorrow morning. So, if there's no other questions, I want to really thank everybody a lot. I want all of you to remember that this was what? A great beginning. Let's remember some of the lessons that we've learned from our great American free enterprisers that grab their own bootstraps and make it work, quit waiting for a check to come in the mail, get out and generate it. And let's try and move forward in a direction that will work in our area that fits the mold for which they started. Thank you very much. So, my good friend here who catches the ball before it hits the floor. How would I remember? It's dessert and coffee now. Don't go anywhere. So share some of these stories that Paul, in some ways we can get together and make it work. And then there's a draw. Harry's anxious for the draw. You know, that's one thing about my really good friend Harry. He'll never, or Dennis, never miss a free thing. So, who's going to draw?
Well, Brent should pull it.
Oh, sure. He got all the credit. He knows he didn't blame. That's fair enough. Where's the whole thing? It's coming. Okay. All right, ticket number. I assume we can go with the last four, number 4, 3951. 3951. Wilbur Victor. That is so appropriate. I mentioned 2. I had mentioned 2 of the 3 people, my favorite people. I'm looking for something free. I mentioned you 2, and I forgot about him. What do you got? There was some thought that maybe we could auction off the centerpieces and the money would go to the food bank. And all I know is I ain't the guy that's auctioning them off. So if somebody, Victor Smith, you're the guy. Victor, come on up here. The chain's on that. Come on and auction these centerpieces off. I'm going to walk away. You're going to come up here right now. Because you're a good guy.
This job just got really easy. Okay, so whoever wants to take the centerpiece of the table, just for that table, if they leave $5 on the table, at least, or whatever you want, the money will go to the food banks. So it's a pretty good deal. Thank you very much.
You put on a good do, kid. You put on a good do. Just knock it down.